Welcome, guys, to episode 7. We have been live for about 2 months, and we have been excited for every single episode till date. And we are super, super excited for episode 7, which is about injuries and what are the common injuries, how do we recover from injuries, what can our viewers take away from this episode. That includes, hey, if we have any injuries, how do we recover from it, who do we go see, and how can we prevent it in the future. About In terms of our social media activities, those who are subscribed, thank you, we really appreciate it. And we want to keep growing. We want to have more and more subscribers. Remember, the social handle is at Tennishackery, and we are on Instagram, we are on X, and we are on Meta. And in terms of our podcasts, we are on Spotify as well as YouTube. I have shared, I'm sure all of us, myself, Alex, and Tarun, have shared with a lot of our friends and families, and we plan to share with more and more friends. I've been talking a lot in terms of, with my friends one on one, and they're all very, very excited about it, and they're looking forward to us, bringing more people on board, interviewing players, coaches, the subject matter experts, and we have so much in store for you guys going forward. So super excited to start this episode. And Alex, welcome. It's good to have you back. And Tarun, as always, our tech guy, he is responsible for our website still not being up.
Yeah,
So he'll
irresponsible.
say a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah.
So Alex, take it away. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good to be back. Yeah, I'm excited to talk a lot about injuries. I'll go more into my own injury at some point, but I've just dealt with an injury for a year and a half.
Wow. Yeah.
And I've had some other injuries. So I think it's such an important topic. How to prevent it, where to go, who to go to. And also understanding, like with tennis, like what can you already like work on as a kid and as an adult? What can you put into your program when you're playing, when you're going to the tennis court? Like just even like a basic understanding can already help a lot. But then knowing where to go for more specific, better attention for it.
Absolutely.
But I think Tarun is going to have a lot better information of that and tell us some research.
Thanks, Alex. So yeah, as you know, injury is not fun. It's not fun at all. So I think all three of us at some point in our athletic slash tennis careers have had are have dealt with or are dealing with injuries. So so the objective of this episode, first of all, is to not offer medical advice. So please, every injury, every situation is specific. You definitely have to consult experts. But what we are trying to do is to present some basic information that gives you a good starting point, and from there, you can get something out of this in terms of, just like Alex said it amazingly, put it amazingly well, like what are the different practitioners whom to go to, and general. So you always go to the experts. Your situation may vary. All right, so getting a deeper dive into tennis specific injuries. The first thing I'll start with is what is specifically unique about tennis and what are the tennis injuries, right? So tennis is an extremely, like we mentioned before in our the physical aspect of tennis episode, lots of quick movements over a long period of time. So a lot of rotational movements, and then you also have the component of overheads. So you're going to go up and hit serves, which is the basically the most common stroke in tennis is the serve. So in tennis, so if I break it down, so about looking at my notes, so what happens is in tennis, you have if you chop up the body into three parts, you have upper body. About quarter of injuries happen in the upper body, which is essentially your shoulder, your upper back, your torso. Then your core, lower back, your front portion, your abs, and then the lower body, which is you're talking about your lower body muscles, your hips, your knees, ankles, calves. So So typically the typical distribution, based on statistically and scientifically proven studies, is around quarter of injuries happen on the upper body. The core is around 15 to 20%, and the lower body is almost 30 to 50%. So again, because the power goes from the ground up, so you're contacting your ground first. So all the impacts is at its highest in the lower body. So lower body injuries are typically more common.
Where did you get that?
So this is from these studies are quoted in our tennis performance training manuals. So as a part of level 2 of PTR, we have to go through that course, and I have passed that course recently. So
Nice. I still need
stating
to.
that with some reasonable confidence. So yes. So
Nice.
yeah.
Okay.
So again, so the typical types of injuries you can go are, shoulders, rotator cuffs, bicep tendonitis, and then typically these things happen when you are lifting stuff or serving, because it's overuse. In tennis, you are overusing your rotational muscles.
Mhm.
And then you have elbow injuries, tennis elbow, golf elbow, and then you have wrist injuries. So basically improper technique, you're using extreme grips and more powerful strokes. It all radiates through your arm. So you have wrist, you can end up with wrist as well as elbow injuries. Lower
Absolutely.
back, yes.
Yeah, and a lot like tennis is everything is forward, right? So it's
Yes.
like forehand is forward, your backhand is forward,
Yes.
serve, volley, everything is this way.
Yeah.
And so our posture becomes more and more forward. And so
Yes.
it also like increases like the shoulder injury, the back injury, like your lower
Yes.
back injury. And so like a lot like that just brought me back to like how important it is for tennis players to really get your posture right and to really work on like your back muscles, your shoulder muscles, like the pull exercises basically. Because a lot of kids and a lot of people do a ton of push-ups,
Yep.
which is just even more like making you forward to
Yes.
make your shoulders like round forward, which is not helping at all.
Yes.
So it's very important for tennis players to like work on your posture so your shoulders are back.
Yes. Absolutely.
With pull exercises. So a band is really good for that.
Absolutely.
And core strength is super important because that's the middle, like if you're not having the strength there, you're going to compensate. Sorry, I'm just jumping off of
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. These are golden nuggets, Alex. Please go, please. Yeah.
I have a question actually.
Right.
I've been listening to both of you experts in
Not
this.
an expert.
Not,
I'm an expert.
I mean, experts in the sense that relative to me. So it's very interesting information, and thank you
Yeah.
guys for sharing. What I want to know, whoever can answer this is, what are the common injuries for juniors, and what are the common injuries for adults? Like as you age, there are certain types of injuries.
Right.
So, Tarun, I know you work with a lot of junior.
Yeah.
So obviously, same with Alex. But since you're also PTR 2 level 2 certified, can you tell me a little bit about what are the common injuries that you see kids suffering from?
Oh, yes. So typically, see, the kids, their bodies are growing. Lower body injuries are rare because it's a growing body. Kids are very agile. So the typical injuries, again, statistically, that are seen in kids, there is a lot of it results from improper serve technique and playing a lot of tournaments. So some of these injuries are basically your shoulder and upper back injuries, which are seen more common among kids. Typically, this is an overuse injury. And that's why some of the latest studies that have been done advise against early specialization in tennis. So this is a very important point, I think, which we brought up in our previous episode as well. So the general rule of thumb by scientific studies, and we can link those to in the show notes, is if your age, let's say the amount of tournaments to play in a year should be lesser than or equal to the age of the child. So if you're a 12-year-old, don't try to play more than one tournament a month. And the similar it's kind of a rule of thumb. The same thing applies to the number of training hours a week. So the training hours means whether you're spending time on the court practicing or doing some extra fitness work, which by the way is highly recommended and other things that are recommended are also to pair tennis with a different sport like perhaps soccer or basketball, just so that you're not just pigeonholed into using those same muscles again and again and again, and there is a general overall athletic development.
You're talking about cross training?
Yes, absolutely.
Great, great. And if great points. Now, Alex, what about adults? I know you have played on the tour, you have seen a lot of people around you. What are the common injuries that adults face? Of course, we are all aware of some of the pro players facing various types of injuries, like whether it's a hip, whether it's a wrist, whether it's a knee, back, a lot of injuries. But in your close circle, can you describe some of the injuries that you've seen and how did they recover from it?
Hmm. As adults or like pros? Like pros, like younger adults or like
No, so I'm talking about people who are between, let's say, in the range of 18, 19 to about 30.
okay.
Sort of almost your peak years of playing tennis.
Yep.
Yeah. I would say shoulder injury is really big, especially the dominant hand, so usually the forehand and the serve. Then a sprained ankle. Most tennis players always have a sprained ankle at some point, a few times. But that one is, I would say it's very important that you really work on your hips, and your shoulders, which goes back to the posture.
Yeah.
If I think about the players that I've worked with a lot and that have had some injuries, it's been shoulder mostly, wrist as well,
Mhm.
very important. But I would say shoulder is the one that I have seen most. Yeah.
So I'm hearing shoulders a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So since shoulders is common, what do we do to prevent that? What are some of the physical training
Yeah.
techniques that we can use so that we as adults we don't have shoulder injuries?
I mean, I have a very strong opinion about it now. I think especially when you get older, and when I say older, I'm like talking about after college, if you're a player in college, when
Yeah.
you're on your own, basically.
Right.
I think you need experts, because like at some point, if you're playing a lot, stuff is gonna not be as it should be. Like your hip is gonna be off, or your shoulder is gonna not rotate well, or there's something gonna be off. And I think you just going to the gym and doing your own program, it's sometimes can be actually like worse. But it definitely is not showing you your blind spots. It's definitely not like really like knowing exactly how to be
Yep.
in perfect condition. So I think it's like at least a few times a year, go and see an expert and get some feedback. And preferably you actually have like some structure. Even if you go once a week to like someone that is an expert, I think is like makes such a difference.
Yep. Yeah, but actually, Alex, this is an excellent segue when you mentioned about experts. So I wanted to ask both of you guys. So there are and this would help a lot of our audience as well as juniors as well as adults. So what are the different categories and types of experts that could help in the sense? I'm sure there is the prehab side of it. There's the prevention side of it. Then there is the injury management and then recovery. So what are the typical types of experts? I'm sure a lot of people deal with different phases of this. That if you could break this down for our listeners.
I would love to go into that too, but the first thing that comes up to me is Soham, your wrist injury. Like I remember us talking about it,
Yeah.
and that you went
Yeah.
back to India and you did Ayurveda, which I think is super interesting, and I would love for you to talk more about that.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And I have, once I finish, I have a couple of questions too for you guys, but I'll share my personal story. So it's so in a year ago, while I was coaching, it was a very accidental sort of incident where um, I guess I don't exactly remember how it happened, but the tennis racket ended up hitting the bone on my wrist, on my right hand. I don't know if I felt a lot of pain when it actually happened, but certainly a couple of days later, it definitely was very painful to the point that I could not like I couldn't use my wrist. The range of motion of my wrist was severely hampered and limited. And mentally that was I was a disaster at that point because the tennis season was just about to start in 2 weeks, and I had trained so hard to get to a certain level of tennis which I wanted to, and I was so excited for the season, and this happens, and I was kind of devastated, very honestly, because injuries like these, especially because I'm a right-handed player, and not able to use my wrist is a big hit, and it just like mentally kind of like affects you, right?
Yeah.
And like, so I'll talk about the mistake I made. The mistake I made was I took it a little lightly, and I'm also resistant to go to a doctor.
Oh, yeah.
I was fearful because I knew, like, if I went, I could be in a cast for months and I would miss the tennis season. So, and I don't recommend people doing this, but I'm just sharing
Don't.
a personal story of what you
Yeah.
shouldn't do.
Yeah.
I what I did was, it was sort of a temporary fix every time before. So I tried to not play too many matches, but I did play 3 or 4 matches in the season. And every time before I would schedule to play a match, I would actually put some ointment over the, like, around the area, and that would actually like the pain would go away for 2 hours.
You're crazy, man.
Uh,
Yeah.
it was the stupidest thing to do, honestly. But
Yeah.
I'm just sharing a
Yeah.
story
I know.
because
I know. And this is a lot of
It's very
people do this.
relatable,
I,
to be
Very
honest.
relatable. Yeah.
I'm very passionate about a tennis, and I
Yes.
didn't want
Yes.
to not play. So
Yes.
that's really the reason.
Yeah.
But so I played, and my results were not bad. Actually, I had good results. So obviously, but it definitely it wasn't the smartest thing to do, and I admit it. So it happened. It went on for about 6 months where I would do this. 6 months of stupidity, because I was fearful that I would not
Hey,
be able
quick
to play
question.
tennis at all.
Quick question. What was that ointment?
Yeah.
It was an ointment that I had actually got from
Oh,
India,
yeah.
but it was great. It's actually really good, and I can obviously, if anybody who's listening to this and wants to know, I would happily recommend that ointment. It's a really good, it's a pain relief ointment from India. So anyway,
Yeah.
6 months later, so this happened in April. In October, I was in India. I was like, I need to get this treated. The healthcare system in India is very accessible. So, and I knew people who I knew the person to go to who can actually help me resolve this issue, remediate the issue, right? So I was excited by that prospect. Hey, at least let me try.
So what did they
Because
do?
say that again, Alex.
What did they do?
So yeah, I'm getting to that. So basically, this is an Ayurvedic center, and so I was in India for about 2.5 weeks. The first 7 days I went to this place every day for 1 hour, and they would just sort of massage the area, just make sure that the blood is flow it they would stop the blood flow and then release. So it was like
Yeah.
the joints would be like uh the basically they made the blood flow easier, because when the blood flow is affected, that's when the pain happens. So they did something called a rope therapy. They put hot oil and they massage the area. It was natural, like organic,
Yes,
natural
yes. Yeah,
techniques used. Ayurveda, I strongly recommend anybody who wants to get treated to go into Ayurvedic treatment. There is a lot of it's up and coming, and I think it's going to be the future, honestly. So and I literally did this for 7 days, and you won't believe, after 7 days, the pain has gone. I don't feel pain at all. My
7 days?
7 days. That's 7 days, 1 hour each, 1 hour sessions. It's just like going to a massage, basically. But they did a bunch of other stuff. They knew what areas to press, what joints to,
Yeah.
without hurting you,
Much,
right?
it's a much deeper process, right? Because with
Yeah.
Ayurveda, at least what I've heard and what I know is, first of all, they're using herbs that are like gonna relax you, and that is a very internal process, like
Well,
ashwagandha.
well, it depends. It depends. There are very different, like varieties, and I am no expert in Ayurveda. I'm trying to learn more and
You
more
kind
about
of
it.
are, no? You
Not well. In some other episode, I will talk about the venture I'm doing,
yeah,
which does deal with it. But I'm excited by the prospects, and definitely I recovered fully. I am able to play again, which is the best thing ever, because I never wanted to stop. So anyway, the lesson learned is, if you have injuries, go to the doctor as soon as possible to get it checked, because it's better to go early and get the
Yep.
diagnosis than to delay it, because that can aggravate and make it worse.
Yep.
That's the lesson learned. I'm very happy now, and it makes a world of difference to know that you are playing pain free.
Yeah. It
course.
is.
So that's really my story. I did want to quickly ask something about how useful is it, because I've been wondering, how useful is it to go and get massages
Mm.
from time to time if you're playing a lot? I'm very curious to know this, because I don't do it, and a lot of my friends do, and they have told me like things like ice bath or massages regularly really helps.
Yeah,
Anybody?
Yeah. Alex,
yeah,
do you want to take that? Yeah, please.
sure. Um, when I played a lot, like I definitely, I mean, it depends also what is offered, I guess. Like in college, like we were able to be stretched. There was an ice bath there. So
Yeah.
it's much easier. But even afterwards, I probably got a massage every 2, 3 weeks.
Okay.
Um, and then for players, like when I coached and when I was with players, like traveling to tournaments, I would say they probably got a massage once every 2 weeks as well.
Hmm.
Um, but they would be like stretched out, and it would be a physical therapist there that they would go see every day, really. But like that is like really high level. But I think for adults, for um kids like that are a little like older, yeah, massage, it's so helpful because like you really like get to, first of all, you get to relax, like you actually finally get to completely relax, and you're not sitting in some bad posture watching TV, you're actually like fully laying down, and
Right.
and then they're like really massaging the muscles that are really tight. So I think, yeah, it's definitely super helpful in this part of it. um I think next to that, it's like stretching, foam rolling, really important.
Yes.
Yep. Yep.
I
So
think, I,
stretching before you play and after you play, cooling down, I believe, definitely are preventative methods.
yeah, and there's like so many different research about like
Yes.
stretching before. I always ask whoever, like whatever expert I'm seeing in some sort of way, I'm always like, what is your belief in like stretching before? I know that it's like dynamic stretching, so lunges and stuff like that is
Yeah.
also like recommended before, and then static stretches afterwards. So you hold the stretch for like 20 seconds plus.
Yes.
But then I've also heard from my PT right now that is like, it's okay to stretch a little bit here and there before you're just like, but don't stretch for like 40 seconds and then go
Yeah.
to weights, you know,
Yep.
something like super powerful.
Yep.
Got it. Got
Very
it.
well
Great
said.
advice.
Very well said. Yeah. Yep.
Now, Alex, what about your, I know that you just, we hit, that was a great experience. And I know that I'm so glad to see you back on the tennis court. I know you've had a rough time with the injury and you're kind of recovered almost. How did it happen? What was your recovery process? And, tell us about the whole process and your journey.
Yeah, I'll try not to take up too much time because I can talk about it forever. When we played last week or 2 weeks ago, I did too much.
Mhm.
So I actually took a step back because I was too excited, and I wanted to play points, and then I didn't want to like lose points.
Right, of course. Yeah.
I was gonna go harder. Which was stupid. I was like, after it's like, dang it, like now I have to like, so I didn't play much since, but now I'm starting to play again. But yeah, so the lesson in that is stay patient even when you're getting to the end. If you haven't played for a really long time, it's so easy to just be so excited. But yeah, so I've had a foot injury, a broken bone in my foot, a sesamoid bone. And it was kind of like a mystery injury in the beginning. Like they thought it was this, then they thought it was coming from my back. And I went to see doctors. I got a PRP shot, which is your own blood cells, like basically it's flushing out the inflammation. And I did acupuncture. I went to see Toby Hansen, who was like a pain specialist here in the Bay Area that works with all kinds of professionals and sports teams. But eventually it came through. There was a fracture, and then I got a boot, and then I got a PRP shot, and then I did physical therapy. And now I'm finally, after a year plus, year and a half almost, I'm finally getting to the end of that injury. I think it is I think it's just like sometimes you have just a big injury and sometimes you have small injuries. This is the biggest injury that I've ever had. It was definitely like a lot of learning for me. It was also a really great opportunity to think about how I can improve my life in other ways. It kind of felt like that's what I had to do. That was kind of the lesson in it all. Um, and when I went to see Toby Hansen, the pain specialist, he even said that. He's like, well, it's your foot, right? So it's kind of like, how do you step forward in life? And
Yeah.
I find
Yeah.
it very
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
literally like I'm stuck, okay, with
Yeah.
my
Yep. Yep.
so
Very
yeah,
metaphorical. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I'm glad that you're recovered and you're almost right at the end. My question again is, we both have recovered pretty much from our injuries. The issue is you don't want to re-injure the same thing again, because
Yep.
that could be worse.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
we
I
have
did
to
that.
be very
I'm exhibit A of re-injury, actually.
okay.
So
So basically Tarun is going to talk about that, because that's really my question
yes.
is like,
Yes.
you don't want to injure the same
Yes.
area of your body twice or
Yes.
thrice, because that is detrimental.
Yes. That's
So,
detrimental. So
Tarun.
in my case, I had a ski accident and I had minor tears on my left knee. And after it did not, thankfully, it was the ligament tears were not that bad. I did not require surgery. I I actually followed the PT very well. I did my all my prehab. I did all the I'm sorry, the rehab. The word is rehab. I did all the rehab properly, strengthened it, then got back to tennis after like a 4 or 5 month break. And for one season, I was okay. But the second season, I could feel my body did warn me that there was some pain in the patella. It was not in the same area because that was more of a lateral tear, but this was on the patella. So it looks like there was some compensation injury going on. I ignored those warnings like an idiot. And in the match, I went for an overhead and I landed on my left foot and I re-injured.
You're not the only idiot then. Now we have two.
At me, I was running on I was playing tennis on running shoes.
Yeah.
Okay, we have
Yes.
why we are together
Three.
for as a team from
Yeah.
Tennishackery for a reason. We are three
Yeah.
idiots when it comes to this. We are too passionate about tennis.
Yes. So, so to cut a long story short, what I learned from that is that I then networked around. I spoke to a lot of experts. I went on a lot of Facebook groups, and I spoke to other people who have had similar issues. What they say is, with knees, typically you do get re-injuries, but the thing is, you have to have a very disciplined lifestyle, especially as an adult. You are not getting younger. You have to put in the extra work in terms of strengthening your quads, strengthening your calves, hamstrings, and then your body will be your body will, you can handle it, know your limits, and put in the work. So that's the lesson that what I have learned.
What kind of work do we need to do?
So specifically for the knee, I've had to strengthen my quads. I have to strengthen my calves. So I have to do, lunges. I have to avoid certain activities. For instance, I cannot go back to the ski slopes ever again. I will not.
Mm.
I will avoid the ski mountains like plague. So because those are the toughest on the knees. And
Correct.
so know those limits and read those signs early, especially when you start getting the first inclination of pain. Take your breaks, and then I mean, you would have read about these methods called PRICE, PRICE. You protect, then you kind of rest, then you ice it. So it's not a general formula, but it applies to typically how to immediate treatment of I'm talking about the early signs of injury. I'm not talking about major injuries. So things like that. So pay attention to your body, know your limits, and put in the work. Is what my learnings are from my re-injuries.
What about your experience with cramps?
Oh yeah. So I am a cramper. So this is very important. I think Alex, you may have seen this a lot. You guys have seen it a lot. So being a cramper, so there are different levels again. You need to understand the difference between a cramp and a stroke. I won't go into the medical details. These can be looked up. But typically, heat cramps come first. So you are basically your muscular system, and it's a brain body thing. There's been a lot of research that talks about this. There are different factors: lack of conditioning, electrolyte imbalance. You lose a lot of water, things like that. So again, don't start a match in a dehydrated state. Take your nutrition seriously, replenish. So there are certain hydration protocols where you need to replenish water per pound of your body weight. So I think it's 3 to 4 milliliters. I don't have the numbers. Maybe we can link it in the show notes. But you definitely drink.
Check your pee color.
Yes.
Here.
Check those pee colors. Yeah. So those, light to, it's a strip which tells you lighter to darker, darker, bad, lighter, good.
Yeah.
And then proper clothing, sunscreen, cooling your body, take those rests, cool your body down. And then, do pay attention to carbs. So don't come on an empty stomach to a match. I mean, in the sense that you need to have some amount of carbs before your match and during the match itself, because sodium and carbs are very, very important. I think we did talk about this in one of the previous episodes.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it doesn't hurt to re-emphasize it,
Yes.
because
Yes.
I think
Because
these are all very important
Yeah.
topics.
So these heat cramps are extremely common in tennis. You play long matches in the heat, last 2 hours, 3 hours. It's pretty crazy. That's what.
Question for you, Alex. I don't know if you and I, or you, all three of us, have had any offline discussions about this. When we have injuries are not fun, right? Like, we always want to be playing tennis, any other sport for that matter. Injuries take a toll on us physically and mentally. I want to quickly touch upon the mental part of this. You said you were out for over a year. I was getting agitated being out for a couple of weeks. Can you talk about your mental state of mind being out for a year? Like, and you have played tennis at a high level. So talk to us about, and the audience about, what kind of effect it had on you mentally, and did you seek like help from psychological help or anything of that sort?
I did actually. Yeah, for me, it was really um probably the biggest moment in my life that everything kind of stopped. I'm a tennis coach, right? Full time, and a tennis player, and I've been my whole life. So for me to not be able to use my feet, like, such a big thing. Yeah, I mean, I went to therapy and I started like thinking about the future. It was very much like thinking about the future and having to look at the ways that I wasn't looking at my future before,
Mhm.
which is really good for me. And I feel that's why, like, I actually think back about this injury, and in some ways I'm kind of like, it's really good it happened, because I wouldn't have done it. I would have just kept grinding my hours with tennis.
Yeah.
And now I've thought a lot about the future. I've set up myself in a lot of ways that are helping me. Yeah, it's been like a very helpful year that I've looked at things in my life, not just tennis, that I normally wouldn't have. So it was hard though, for sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for, talking about it, because not everybody is comfortable necessarily talking about this.
Yes.
And I often contemplated that if I was out for an extended period of time, it would deeply affect me. And, you know, it's not easy, right? And I cannot even imagine what like ATP or WTA
Yeah.
players go through when they have to sit out for, I mean, I'm just going to take a couple of names like Dominic Thiem, um, suffered, Juan Martin Del Potro suffered, Andy Murray has suffered some injuries. Nadal's been on and off. I mean, he's been injured during a Grand Slam final and just playing through it. I mean, at the highest level, and it's their profession. So I cannot even fathom,
Yeah.
like, we are talking about recreational level, us, but at a higher level, like, it's their life.
Yeah, I think it's like, I mean, like for Rafa, like obviously he's had a lot of injuries, but it's always been like he's always been able to come back. It's never been like really like a fear. I mean, now but he's older. But I think for players that are really going through, like Zverev, for example, when he sprained his ankle,
That was
it was
terrible. Yeah.
possible, like the
Horrible
highest.
uncle. Yeah.
I think it's like it just changes you. Like I think he actually like really got more mature. And like the documentary that you saw also
Yeah.
on Netflix, like he actually spoke about that a lot because he really was like he had to stay in bed. Like he couldn't do anything for like months and months and months. So you're just with your mind, right? And so like someone that is so like used to getting attention or winning and winning and tennis and tennis and tennis and out of nowhere it's not there.
Yeah.
I think it's extremely hard, but when you get through it, it most likely will help you in your life a lot.
I agree. Like, for me, like, and I don't know about you, Tarun, but certainly for me, like, it's made me mentally stronger,
Yeah.
having gone through the experience. Forgive my stupidity, but still, just going through that experience. And I'm sure, like, for Alex too, and yourself, Tarun, you know when you have to take time off, it it's an opportunity for you to reflect
Of course.
and, like, introspect about other things in life, taking maybe higher priority to take care of your body, because that's ultimately, really, that's more important than playing a game of tennis, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, taking care of yourself, your body, your mind, all are connected, is so important. And like we have mentioned in previous episodes, that tennis is a grueling sport, like, physically and mentally, right? And playing at a higher level is super tough. And as we are getting older, it requires us to be more vigilant and more, like, disciplined about what we eat, how we hydrate, how much we sleep, what kind of exercises do we do pre matches, post matches, recovery, all of that. And again, this is something that we already spoke about in the fitness episode. But all these things are super important. And Tarun, like, um, what can you give our listeners or viewers some tips about measures that they can take to, I know you already touched on this, so
Yeah.
maybe some supplemental information about, as we get older,
Yeah.
like,
So
how do we manage our time, our body, our, the physical exercise and all of that?
yeah, definitely discipline is the word. So, I mean, if you want to play tennis, you have to be fit. So, for as we age, scientific studies have shown that, you actually lose bone density, your muscle use, you do skeletally, you become weak. So, definitely add a lot of training. So, based on, your body type, based on your requirements, mobility, I think as you age, mobility is a big thing that needs to be added. Joint mobility, your shoulders and your hips, definitely take care of those because they are heavily overused in tennis. So you do need to have proper range of motion on your shoulders and hips for sure. There are a lot of exercise protocols, and like Alex said, you have any questions you want to go, definitely consult experts from time to time
Sure,
to
sure.
get what works for you, for your body type, for your workload. Maybe you already have a history of injuries. So it's definitely my biggest two words would be shoulders and hips.
And do you think if you play multiple sports, that one sport can have a negative effect on tennis, for example? Like let's just take, I don't know, I'm just asking this as a question because I don't know myself. If you play ping pong, which is different from tennis, um, can you play ping pong and tennis in parallel?
I mean, I don't see so as long as it's not interfering in any major way. So for instance, if you ping pong is, I believe a lot of a wristy sport. So
Correct.
if you've had a history of wrist issues, then perhaps you should ease up on that. But I mean, cross training typically is a good thing, especially for juniors. For adults, of course, based on, the time available and, your history and, your body types, definitely your mileage may vary.
What about like
There's
using
no pickleball and tennis combined.
I actually
That might be that might be a personal opinion, but pickleball and tennis, the mix of it does not work. You need to do one or the other. I mean, this is my personal experience.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're at the net with pickleball and you're just leaning. You're not stepping.
Yeah.
With tennis, you have to like go
Yeah.
through the volleys.
Yeah.
I am of the same opinion. I am actually with Alex on this one.
Yeah.
I think tennis should not be mixed with like badminton, other racket
Yes.
sports,
Yeah.
like squash, pickleball,
Yeah.
racquetball, badminton, ping pong,
Mhm.
anything, right? I think that's where some people face a lot of problems.
Yeah.
And you want to just either play tennis or don't play tennis, do other things, right?
Mhm.
That's what I tell my students.
Mhm.
So that's one aspect of it. But I think certain sports go well with tennis.
Absolutely.
For example, I tell a lot of my students to do two sports besides tennis, which I think are complementary.
Mhm.
One of them is soccer, because I think
For sure.
it you have to move in soccer. You can't really be stationary. So I think it helps with the footwork. And the other one is swimming, because I think swimming is such a good sport for not just as a life skill, but it also works your core muscles. And also, you have to use your shoulders a lot. I think it works your entire body and it helps with the breathing.
Oh, yes. The
So
breathing
I
and the
think
mind. Yes.
for me, tennis, swimming, and soccer, I think go together.
Yes.
But I recommend my students not to play tennis, ping pong, badminton, squash together. I think that just messes up your form.
Yes,
Totally.
for sure. Yeah. Even the footwork. I mean, they are all the dimensions are different. The way you move, the footwork, everything is different. So it will get you in trouble.
Nothing against pickleball, by the way, from my side. I just had a personal experience with it, and I got into pickleball for a few weeks, like really like a few hours a day, and it really messed with my tennis. And then ever since I knew that, I've been talking to people, and I do hear that that's the case a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to
Pickleball, don't get me started. Yeah.
well, obviously there are some arguments on pickleball versus tennis, completely different
Yes.
area in
Completely
terms of
different.
in terms of taking over courts and stuff, but that's
Yes.
for another episode maybe. But in terms of like complementary skill set, I highly recommend. I mean, this is just again personal opinion.
Yes. Yes.
I think doing other sports which are complementary and it can only help you
Yes.
develop your body, mind, whatever else is, I think, useful.
Yeah.
That's really what I wanted to say. And I think if you do that, perhaps it can also lessen the probability of injuries.
Yes, very much.
Those are the things that I wanted to say. And, you know, again, I think we have the one last thing that I might want to, I know we have mentioned this before, but, proper nutrition is very, very important. And it can only help you in as you age. I think you have to be more careful after a certain age. Like we spoke about this during one of our episodes, but being careful with your food intake is essential. I think it keeps you healthy if you take the right food. And again, you should perhaps consult a dietitian or someone if you want to continue to play any sport at a highest level. I think getting expert opinion is super important. Anything you want to say, Tarun or Alex?
And yeah, I think nutrition is key. I think not just for sports. I think nutrition is like the way you feel. It's your body, it's your mind. It's I think a lot of times we eat bad when we don't feel good, you know. So I think our food intake really reflects what is going on or how we're doing. I know that like if I'm feeling kind of crappy, I'm having chips, for example. And then it can be a little bit of a cycle, you know. So I 100% agree. I think it's very important to get the right nutrients in. I mean, if you get really sciencey about it, on the end of the day, we're a bunch of cells, and our cells need to communicate. And if our cells are not healthy, then they communicate that way, and your motivation and your actions, your thoughts, it all is kind of a trickle effect.
Yep.
So I think that said, some people are like extremely healthy and they're like super perfectionistic about it. I've definitely done that. I don't think that's necessary. I think that's like super extreme. I
I
think
know some. I know some people who have gotten on keto diet, and
I've
they're
done it all. I've done that. I've done fasting for 5 days and extreme stuff.
yeah,
And I think, yeah,
Yeah.
personally, I think that's out of balance as well.
Yeah.
right,
Fasting,
right.
not good for tennis. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So now Tarun, as we close our episode, because I think we have learned a lot. I
Indeed.
personally learned a
I
lot.
learned a lot today. Yep.
I want to ask you, hey, some of the viewers have been wondering, when are we going to call some experts or some former players or current players or some interesting people? Because I think a lot of people are tired of seeing our faces.
Oh yes, I'm sure, especially my beautiful face.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think we have spoken to a lot of folks. Many folks have agreed. I think many of them are like famous podcasters. Some of them are experts and mutual contacts that we all know. So yeah, so I think the key is, of course, to get our subscriber count up. So I think if at some level, if you think about it, it is a chicken and egg problem. The experts will come if we have a big enough subscriber base. So it's all in the hands of you, dear viewers and listeners. So yeah, at Tennishackery with a Y is our handle. So please do give us a follow, like, subscribe. Tennishackery is the place where we discuss all things about tennis that relate to, technology, fitness, the brain game. We are all about wholesome tennis.
And what is the status of our website, Mr. Technology?
Oh yes, it's still a piggy. If you go to tennishackery.com or
Oh
tennishackery.org.
no,
Yep.
people are waiting patiently.
Yes.
When are
yes.
we? When
I think I'm going to recruit. I'm going to recruit a web developer. His name is Soham Mukherjee.
The question that everybody's asking in the market is, when the hell will Tennishackery put up their website?
Yes. Yes.
Any date in mind?
Yes. We should. It will. It will.
Sorry
And
Soham
once the
is putting
website goes up, perhaps then all our guests will take us seriously and then start showing up. Maybe.
I hope I hope people are taking us seriously, and
Yeah.
we are our aim honestly is to be relatable, to share our experiences. We are not doing this to have thousands and thousands of people just pressing the follow button. Of course, we would love that, but we really want people to be able to relate to us. Some of our friends have shown excitement that they want to be part of these episodes. They think we are doing a pretty, cool job, talking about very,
Yes.
very relevant sort of topics.
Yep.
And we want to continue to do that. I think there's so many topics we can think about. We will definitely be inviting some, folks over to have some question and answer, some, people from whom we can learn a lot from. And otherwise, we are working on the website, like Tarun said. We are patiently waiting for the subscriber count to go up, which I'm sure it will. And last but not least, I'm actually off to Europe, so you will not see my pretty face maybe for a couple of weeks. If Tarun and Alex decide to do an episode, but once
What
I'm
are you
back,
doing in Europe? Euro trip?
I am doing a Euro trip. It's going to be fun, and I will. Here is the best part. I will be actually in Paris and I'll be going to the French Open on the second day.
Woo.
So once I'm back, I will definitely grace our viewers with some, feedback and some personal experience about my visit to Roland Garros.
Nice, nice. I'm jealous, man.
Oh
Same.
yeah, I will share some pictures with you guys. But I want to thank the viewers for listening to us. It's been one of our very fun episodes. We learned a
Great.
lot, and as Tarun and Alex said, by no means are we medical experts or anything of that sort. We're just sharing our experience, and we are recommending based on our personal experience what we feel is the best approach for our viewers in case they ever uh, encounter any injuries or that sort. So thank you all for listening. It's been a pleasure. That completes episode 7, and we eagerly await, to launch episode 8, 9, 10, and beyond
And
in the
beyond.
coming weeks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.